is going on, guys? This is Evan Cheney for cruelfan.com, and today we're going to be talking about Week 11 of the NFL season, more specifically from a DFS perspective, the main slate on Sunday. And without further ado, let's kind of just look at how quarterbacks shake out. Although, let's also look at the Vegas lines for this week, because there aren't any crazy high totals. I mean, you have Green Bay and Indianapolis that's going up a bit. Vegas, Kansas City has gone up, although I am a little hesitant to say that. Oh wait, no, it's a Sunday night game. That doesn't even matter. Not for the main slate, right? This one's kind of low. So, I mean, there aren't insanely high totals on this slate. Also, you don't have a ton of stud quarterbacks playing in this slate. I mean, you don't have Russell Wilson. You don't have Kyler Murray because they're playing on Thursday night. You don't have Patrick Mahomes, right, because he's playing Sunday night. So you do have a lot of the options kind of off the board for sure. So that's why we have kind of a lower ceiling for quarterback pricing with Lamar Jackson being your highest priced quarterback. And I don't even think that he's reasonably priced that high, right? I mean, I would even fade him at that price against Tennessee. That just doesn't seem like the ideal game environment for him. So, Lamar Jackson's not really on my radar. Maybe you can go with an Aaron Rodgers against Indianapolis. I know there will be opportunities there. And the weather is not going to be a problem because, indoor stadium. Yeah. So you have that. You go down, you have Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert against the Jets seems like a move that you can make. I will say him being priced higher than some of these other options might be questionable. I know he does get a great matchup against the Jets, but I don't know. I mean, let's look what he's done, right? He has done quite well, right? Since becoming the starter, right? Since playing legitimate time, which is really every week except week 1. I mean, he has scored very well from a DraftKings perspective. Right? He had this 41-point game against an awful defense in Jacksonville. Right? Gets another awful defense in New York. Yeah, he gets another awful defense there. So, I mean, it might make sense. Justin Herbert, right? Stacking him with Keenan Allen. Could work. Right. Yeah, then you have... Oh, he's not playing. Right, then you also have Ben Roethlisberger, who's in a decent spot. Did very well last week in Cincinnati. Right, 32.32 in that spot. Gets a terrible Jacksonville defense. That could also work. Although I guess I would prefer Herbert being at home. Although this season we haven't really seen too many situations where home field advantage exists. So, those two options are fine. Deshaun Watson going up against New England. New England's actually been pretty bad defensively this season, but Houston has also been bad in general. Right? They haven't really been that good of a team this season, although I will say he does have high upside. Because New England has been so bad defensively, there is certainly value to be had with the quarterback going up against them. All right, going on down here, Cam Newton is... I hate to say this, I really do, but Cam Newton is actually viable in fantasy this week. Only because Houston is also an abysmal defense. That could actually be a high-scoring game. Where's the line sit currently? 48? Yeah, 48. It's gone from Houston to actually New England being the favorites, which I can see being the case. Even so, I mean, if this game projects closely, then I will say there is an advantage to stacking this game, especially the larger the GPP you go. I think there's more and more reason for a game stack, and I think in a little bit we can look at who we might be stacking. And I think ownership will follow this, but I don't know. Uh, you can even make the argument for Kirk Cousins. I mean, I know on Monday Night Football, he had a half decent game against Chicago. Because Dallas has been so bad defensively this year. Yeah, because they've been so bad defensively this year, I think you can actually create an argument for Kirk Cousins in this spot. As crazy as that sounds. Um, I mean, Matt Stafford, Jameis Winston. There's a lot of good quarterback options this week. Although I will say, I don't really want to go any further down than maybe Tua. Um, Tua provides some upside, but not really much else. I'm not a huge fan of much else here, honestly. Maybe, yeah, no. I mean, you could go Baker. No, no. I think after Tua, I can't support anything there. Quarterback. So, I mean, if we are going to go with a quarterback, I do want one that's going to throw the ball often. And I don't think, personally, I don't think that the Patriots are throwing the ball often enough for me to justify using them. Even when they're losing, they seem to be pretty run heavy. So, jeez, let's cut my lip somehow. How did I even do that? I don't know. But yeah, quarterback's kind of tough because you have a lot of good options. But I think for right now, just for, I don't know, let's just go Deshaun Watson for now. All right, and then we can look at the running back position because the running back position offers us a lot at the top. There's some fairly expensive running backs. And then there's stuff at the bottom. I don't know. We can look at that as well. So, thinking about it, there's a lot of decent spots here. You have Kamara going up against Atlanta, right? You got Dalvin Cook going up against Dallas. I mean, there's just a lot of good spots. I'm looking at the pricing. They priced Mike Davis up to 6,800. That's kind of interesting, actually, because the thing with Mike Davis is that he has just sucked. Right? Even in starting opportunities, he hasn't really gone off since week 5. And that was against Atlanta. Right, he goes up against Detroit this week, who actually should be a much better matchup for him. I really do. So I hate to do this, but I actually want to play Mike Davis. That's going to bite me in the ass, but I actually want to play him. Because at that price point, you're not getting a ton anyway. It's kind of purgatory. So I actually kind of like him in that spot. So he's Mike Davis in the better matchup. Also, Teddy Bridgewater, we don't know what's going to happen to him. If Teddy Bridgewater's out for whatever reason, I think they might run the ball more. They might do more running back dump-offs. It could be the Mike Davis game that we're kind of used to seeing. Maybe. I'm kind of just guessing at this point. Right, but, I mean, you look at the top here. You have an Aaron Jones at 7,200, Melvin Gordon, James Robinson. I mean, James Robinson seems to do well, even if he's not in a good game script. Like last week, even, he scored 16, which is fine. It's not going to win you a GPP, but it was fine. He still did half decent. Right? I mean, we can even look at a Duke Johnson who should be getting targets. I mean, let's just see what they did last week. No, he didn't really get that many targets. He had 1 against Cleveland. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not excited about running back. Although you do get Ezekiel Elliott pretty cheap. Right, him at 6,500 seems like really good. I don't know. You don't have any good value at the running back position. So you kind of have to spend up. Who to spend up on, I don't know. Actually, James Conner, James Robinson even. I'd rather go James Conner. Spot's better for him to go off. All right, so we'll look at the wide receiver position where we definitely want guys that are going to do well for both teams. And so we look at this and we see that, I mean, Brandon Cooks is actually getting better opportunities than Will Fuller, which is kind of interesting to think about because before the season, it was like Will Fuller or nothing. I don't know. Actually, going back to running back, what about J.D. McKissick? Is that something that we want to go down, that rabbit hole? Unfortunately, it's something that we have to account for because last week he just got a ridiculous number of targets. He had 15 targets in that game last week. It's kind of insane to think about. And the matchup's even better when you go up against Cincinnati. So is J.D. McKissick worth looking at? I don't know. You know what? Let's just, for the salary savings, let's just see how that plays out. So we'll go him. Right, and then going back to everything with Houston and New England, because I want to stack with Deshaun Watson. We could see here Will Fuller, like last game, actually, of course, he had more opportunities, although Brandon Cooks had the same number of targets. I think Brandon Cooks in this situation will probably be higher owned because he's a lot cheaper, right? He's 5,200 as opposed to Will Fuller's, what is he? He's up here. 62, right? So, I mean, that's $1,000 price difference. So, I mean, if we want to go there, just to say Brandon Cooks for a cheapie, and then we run it back by just looking at who has had the best weighted opportunity rating in the last 4 weeks. And wouldn't you know, it's Jacoby Myers. And he still should be getting all those opportunities. And he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. And this is the first time also he's been on the main slate since his little hot streak here. So, I mean, for me, it's kind of simple to just do that. And there you have your game stack. And it's pretty cheap, too, because you have Myers at 4,900, which seems really low, to be honest with you. And that just doesn't make sense. So Cooks, Jacoby Myers, I think work well in this lineup. But if we want to talk about wide receivers overall, all right, I mean, we can look at a Devontae Adams who is always going to be the highest priced wide receiver, but he also gets insane opportunities. So it makes sense. Right, a Julio Jones, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen works really well if you want to stack with Justin Herbert. Robbie Anderson works well for sure. Both Thielen and Justin Jefferson, I think, work for me as well. Maybe not A.J. Brown. No. He's pretty expensive. I get it, but that's a lot for it, I think. Yeah, that's a lot for it. And of course, we can always play which Pittsburgh wide receiver is going to go off. Because yeah, they have 3 guys that can legitimately go off. That's even worse than the Seattle situation because you only have Lockett and Metcalf there. I mean, here you have 3 legit wide receivers that they can go to in Pittsburgh. I don't know. That's a very good team. Very good team. And then I think for me, Terry McLaurin, I just can't resist. You know, I can't. Although he certainly dropped in terms of the last 4 weeks, and then just amongst all wide receivers last week, or amongst all these guys. I mean, he wasn't heavily targeted per se. So, yeah. But I still like his opportunity against Cincinnati. It's just the problem is with Alex Smith, he's not willing to throw the ball deep. At least the other quarterbacks that have played have been somewhat willing to throw some deep passes. But no, not with Alex Smith. He's just not throwing the ball deep. And that's where McLaurin does his work. So yeah, he can work, but it's gonna be hard for him. In terms of other value wide receivers, not horribly excited, or terribly excited rather. Maybe a Keelan Cole. That seems to be a lot of recency bias because Keelan Cole did do quite a bit this past week between a special teams touchdown and a receiving touchdown. So he had a good game last week for sure, but I don't see how that is replicated this week. Julio Jones can work, like I said before. The matchup's a little difficult, but I think that can work just pure volume based. Right, and then we can look at tight ends. All right, tight end is, I mean, you have cheap options across the board. Your most expensive tight end is $4,900 this week. So that leaves you with plenty of options at the position. And it's like salary cap doesn't matter, right? Tight end just sucks in the slate. Which you just gonna have to deal with that, right? And if we want to look at tight ends, right, just the tight end position, who's done well, right? Last 4 weeks, who's done well at tight end? Or who's getting opportunities, rather? Of course, Darren Waller is getting the most opportunities. I mean, we can look at Evan Ingram, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews seems to be the top guy on this slate in terms of recent opportunities. And then he also has the highest upside, highest price, right? If we want to dip down from the highest price, I mean, you'd have to go to a Dalton Schultz or a Hayden Hurst. I mean, let's just look at maybe the last 2 weeks to account maybe for some bye weeks in there. Waller, Kelsey, Andrews, Ingram, Gesicki. That's not a bad option. Tyler Higbee had some opportunities last week. Hayden Hurst. So, I mean, that's just about who you'd want to go with at the tight end position. And again, there's not a whole lot to be excited about. Just because these, I mean, are there any tight ends on this slate that are getting a bunch of targets? Not really. I mean, once you take the Darren Wallers, Travis Kelce's, and George Kittles out of the world with the slate, it's pretty random. Right? It's pretty random where they go from there. So I don't know. Also, I have to pick another wide receiver. I never even did that. No wonder nothing changed. So if I were to go with another wide receiver, kind of like Robbie Anderson for that spot. All right, then we can go with the Mark Andrews because I know he's getting opportunities. And we need a flex guy at the running back spot. I mean, there's just a bunch of different names we can throw out there. I don't know. All right, because of the running back position, I'm kind of hesitant to. Maybe this is where I can go with James Conner. That's good. Okay. So we go with James Conner there, right? And then we have pretty much, we can do whatever we want at defense other than Steelers and Chargers, who are both in great matchups, but the prices are obviously not good. Well, they're not good if you want to fit studs into your lineup. Yeah. I think for me, when you get past Pittsburgh, the Browns are actually a really good defensive option. First off, they're home. Second, the Eagles' offensive line is awful. Third, the Browns force a ton of pressure this season. So actually, I think the Browns are a good defense to use here. You can also use Dallas if you really want to get ballsy and cheap. Right? They're only 2,200. What is it? I mean, there's not a ton of great defenses. I mean, Green Bay can work for sure, and they are somewhere. Packers. Where the hell are the Packers? Oh, here, yeah, 2,800. Baltimore is good. Although, again, the advantage that I think Cleveland has over Philadelphia at the offensive line position is immense. And so I have $900 left to spend. Do I want to spend up on anything else or anyone in particular? I mean, I could go Terry McLaurin over Robbie Anderson if I want to. I could go with the Juju Smith-Schuster. I could upgrade running back or the flex as well, right? I can upgrade him to 75 and below if I want. And I think that's an option, right? Because you can go Keenan Allen, who's going to get a ton of targets going up against the Jets. Although you have to worry about game script possibly, but I don't know. I think this is the lineup I would run out, though, right? So Deshaun Watson, Mike Davis, J.D. McKissick, Brandon Cooks, Jacoby Myers, Robbie Anderson, Mark Andrews, Keenan Allen, and then the Browns defense. The Browns defense, I think, is my favorite defense in the slate. Unfortunately, because I'm an Eagles fan, that works kind of poorly. But I guess it's a life hedge, right? If the Eagles do well, then, Eagles can win, possibly. If the Browns do well, I win money. So not much to complain about there. That'll do it for me. You can follow me on Twitter at eCheney69. That's at ECHENEY 69 on Twitter. And of course, if I am not winning all the money, I hope you guys do. So good luck in your contests this week.